The night was white, angry, and endless. A violent blizzard swallowed the mountains like a hungry beast, roaring between tall houses and shaking every window like the wind wanted to break into every silent room. Snow covered the road so thick that the street looked like a white ocean, and the lights on the poles flickered weakly, fighting to stay alive. The rich houses of the HOA community stood tall like cold castles, big windows glowing warm gold from inside, but outside the world was frozen. Guards who usually walked proudly on the sidewalks now hid inside their cabins, holding blankets, watching cameras, hoping no emergency would come on a night like this. Everyone had a fireplace, thick walls, hot tea, and warm beds. No one thought anyone would be outside. But someone was. Elias Warren drove alone in his black SUV, headlights cutting through snow like knives. He was tired. His day was long, full of business calls, meetings, signatures, numbers, contracts. His mind was full of noise, but outside everything was quiet except the screaming wind. He wanted only one thing now, to go home, sleep, and forget the world for a few hours. He lived in the biggest house in the HOA community. Glass walls, heated floors, private security. People called him a genius CEO, king of the mountain, the man who controlled everything. He was used to storms, used to pressure, used to fighting through chaos. But the storm tonight felt different. It felt personal. Like the night itself was trying to show him something. As he turned the last corner near an old road that led to a forgotten side of the community, something caught his eyes. Something small. Something impossible. A shape on the snowy ground. At first he thought it was trash blown by wind, then maybe a lost animal. But when the headlights touched the shape, Elias felt his heart drop. It was a child. A little girl sat alone on the snow-covered road, her arms hugging her knees, her thin coat soaked in white ice, her hair frozen, her lips blue like she hadn't spoken in hours. Snow was piling on her shoulders like she was becoming part of the road. Her small legs shook uncontrollably and her eyes were open but not looking at anything. Empty, lost, frozen. Elias slammed the brakes so hard the car skidded. He jumped out without closing the door. Wind hit his face like a slap. His breath turned to smoke instantly. He ran through the snow, his shoes sinking deep, heart beating like a drum against his ribs. When he reached her, he fell to his knees, grabbed her small shoulders, shaking gently. "Hey! Hey! Look at me!" he shouted over the storm. The girl's head lifted slowly, painfully, like it weighed more than her body could handle. Her eyes were half closed, tears frozen on her cheeks. When she saw him, something flickered in her gaze. A memory, a hope, a last strength. Her lips trembled and she whispered, voice broken like ice cracking. "Mom said, only you can save us." Those words hit Elias harder than the cold wind. It felt like someone punched his soul. How did she know him? Why would her mother say that? Why was she here alone? Millions of questions exploded in his head, but the little girl was fading, her hands shaking harder. "No talking," Elias said, voice deep. "You're safe now." He lifted her small body into his arms. She was weightless, like she hadn't eaten in days. He wrapped his thick coat around her, pressing her against his chest, trying to warm her with his own body heat. The storm howled louder as if angry he was taking her away. Elias ran back to the SUV, his legs burning from the cold. He got in, slammed the door, turned on full heat, and pressed the girl close to the vents. Her teeth chattered, her fingers curled into claws from the cold. "Where is your mother?" Elias asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The girl pointed weakly toward the dark hill behind the houses, a part of the community no one visited anymore. A place HOA closed years ago after a rule violation incident. No lights, no heat. Houses built cheap before the rich ones arrived. Forgotten. Elias knew that place existed, but he never thought someone lived there. "Inside the old house," she whispered, voice barely there. "She's sick. She can't stand. No heat, no food." Elias didn't wait. He turned the wheel sharply, tires spinning on ice. The car climbed the small hill, engine roaring against the snow. Trees leaned like ghosts trying to block the way. The old house appeared slowly, broken windows, roof covered in white, porch sinking slightly from weight. The house looked like something abandoned in a war zone, not inside a luxury community. He stopped the car, grabbed the girl again, ran through the thick snow to the door. The door didn't need keys. It was broken. Wind pushed it open. Inside the house was freezing dark. His breath looked like smoke in a cold cave. He turned on his phone flashlight and saw the inside. Broken heater, empty shelves, small mattress on the floor with blankets thin as paper, a metal bowl with some water frozen inside. The house smelled like winter death, not life. And then he saw her. A woman lay near the broken heater, hands curled, face pale, lips cracked, body shaking slightly like her last fight was still inside. Snow dust covered her hair. Her breath was slow, almost no sound. Elias's heart squeezed. He placed the girl beside her mother, checked the woman's pulse with shaking hands. Weak, very weak. He pulled off his gloves, put his fingers near her nose, shallow breathing. Call emergency, he shouted at himself, dialing the number. But the call didn't go through. No signal. He tried again. Nothing. He ran to the door, shouted toward the road, hoping guards or anyone would hear. Only wind answered. Then he remembered something, the HOA system. They controlled emergency access for houses with unpaid fines. If the system marked the house as restricted, emergency lines wouldn't work. That was the rule he signed years ago when he joined HOA as a silent investor. At that time it looked like just policy, a way to make sure rule breakers paid. But now he saw the real meaning. It was death for the poor. He looked at the unconscious woman. No, he whispered. Not like this. He lifted her body in his arms. She was heavier than the child, but he carried her like she was made of glass. The girl walked beside him, holding his jacket sleeve, eyes wide with fear and trust. They reached the car again. Elias placed the mother gently inside, wrapped both bodies with blankets and his coat. He slammed the door and pressed the gas pedal hard. The car fought through the blizzard like a beast fighting a mountain. Snow blinded windshield, wipers screaming against ice. Elias leaned forward, focus sharp, hands tight on wheel. Every second mattered. The girl sat beside her mother, holding her hand like she believed her small fingers could keep her mother alive. The hospital was far, but Elias knew a shortcut, old rescue road used before the community was built. It wasn't safe, but tonight the normal way wasn't an option. He turned sharply to the hidden path. Trees whipped the sides of car, snow crushed under tires, engine roared louder. He could feel the mother's breath slowing. The girl whispered her mother's name over and over like a prayer. Elias wanted to say something comforting, but words didn't come. Instead, memory came, a memory he had buried deep. A night like this, many years ago. He was small, cold. His mother was hurt. Snow everywhere. No one came. He remembered small hands hugging him, not his mother's. Someone else. A woman who pulled him into a small shelter, gave him warm soup, wrapped him in her coat, told him he would be okay. His mind shook like the storm outside. Could it be her? The hospital lights finally appeared through the snow, like stars in darkness. Elias pressed harder, reached emergency entrance. Doors opened, nurses rushed out. They grabbed the stretcher, lifted the mother. One nurse gasped, her skin was ice cold. What happened? They asked. Elias didn't explain. He shouted, "She's dying, move now." His voice shook the hallway. Doctors didn't waste time. They took the woman inside, disappearing behind doors. The girl stood holding Elias's coat, breath fast, eyes shaking like she was afraid to blink. A nurse tried to take the girl somewhere warm, but she refused to let go of Elias. She grabbed his hand, voice trembling, "Don't leave us. Mom said you're the only one." Elias breathed slowly, anger building like fire under ice. He knelt beside the girl, looked into her eyes that held more courage than most adults. His voice came quiet but strong. "I'm here." He sat with her on the cold bench outside the emergency room. Snow melted on his hair. He didn't feel it. He only felt the girl's small fingers shaking in his big hands. He didn't know her name. He didn't know the mother's name. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The HOA let a mother and child freeze because of money. Because of rules. Because of power. He looked at the emergency door, jaw tight. His heart beat like thunder. This wasn't just a rescue. It was personal. It was war outside. The blizzard still screamed against the windows, like the night was telling Elias that this was only the beginning. The real storm was inside the community, hidden behind beautiful houses and cruel rules. And Elias Warren, the silent king of the mountain, stood up, put his coat over the girl, and whispered to himself, like a promise he once made long ago, never again. Tonight a little girl's frozen whisper broke his world open. Tomorrow he would break theirs. Elias sat on the cold metal bench outside the emergency room, the girl holding his coat around her tiny shoulders like it was a shield against the world. Snow melted from his hair and drops fell to the floor one by one. But he didn't move, didn't care, didn't feel the cold anymore. His mind was burning even while his body was freezing. The girl's fingers gripped his hand so tight he could feel the desperation in her bones, not just her skin. She didn't speak, she didn't cry loud, she didn't let go. She just sat there breathing fast, eyes locked on the emergency doors like she believed her stare alone could keep her mother alive. Elias remembered being small, holding a stranger's hand the same way, thinking that as long as he held someone, his mother wouldn't disappear. That memory hit him so deep he had to close his eyes for a second. The hospital corridor was full of soft sounds. Machines beeping, nurses walking softly, someone crying in another corner, doctors speaking fast whispers. But around Elias and the girl there was a silence that felt like a storm hiding inside a bubble. Time slowed. Minutes became heavy like stones. Every second hit the girl's heart like thunder. She finally whispered a question that sounded like a wound. "She will wake, right?" Her voice cracked in the middle. Elias didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't know, but because he understood that for this girl, this moment was not about medical answers, it was about hope. So he squeezed her hand gently, letting her feel strength. "We brought her in time," he said softly. "She is fighting." The girl nodded but tears slipped anyway. She wiped them quickly, closing her lips tight like she didn't want to show weak sides. Elias watched that small movement, how she hid pain alone, and his heart clenched. Children learn this only when life teaches them too early. He wanted to tell her crying is okay, but he remembered when someone told him that as a child. It never helped, because fear makes crying feel like danger, not release. A doctor came out wearing a white coat full of snow-melted drops. He looked serious, but not hopeless. "She is stable for now," he said. The girl jumped from the bench. "Can I see her?" The doctor looked at Elias, then at the girl's frozen fingers, her tired face. "Not yet," he said gently. "She needs to warm slowly. Her body was too cold for too long." The girl's face fell like the floor opened under her. Elias stood up, his height feeling like protection for her small shadow. "Doctor," he asked, "what happened to her?" The doctor sighed, eyes tired like he saw too many people fighting battles alone. Cold exposure, lack of food, dehydration, stress, and heart strain. If she was inside that freezing house for even one more hour, he didn't finish the sentence. Elias understood the silence. The girl understood too. Her eyes filled again and she pressed her face into Elias's coat. Elias placed his hand on her back. "It won't happen again," he said quietly. The doctor nodded and walked away. Elias looked at the emergency doors again, his eyes no longer tired. They were sharp, cold, dangerous, like ice forming into a blade. Someone tried to kill this mother without touching her. And they used rules to do it. His anger grew slow, not loud like fire, but quiet like frost that breaks mountains. The girl finally lifted her face. "Mom said, they closed our heater because it was not approved," she whispered. "She said HOA wants everything same." Elias took a slow breath. "Who closed it?" The girl looked down. "HOA man came 3 weeks ago. He said we cannot use cheap heater because it spoils the community image." Mom begged for time. He said rules are rules. After that we used blankets, but snow came and she couldn't finish. She hugged her knees, eyes shaking. Elias looked at her thin coat, cheap shoes. She wasn't a child of comfort. She was a child of fight. He stood up suddenly. The girl looked at him scared he might leave. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice small. Elias bent down to her level. "I need to make a call," he whispered. "I'm not leaving. I promised." The girl nodded, trusting that promise more than any explanation. Elias walked a few steps away, pulled out his phone, dialed a number that usually controlled millions, factories, money, power, but tonight he used that power for something else. His legal head answered, sleepy voice. "Sir." Elias's voice dropped into a tone only his closest team ever heard, a tone that meant war. "Access the HOA system. Open files. I want every fine, every report, every instruction on that abandoned house." The legal head sounded shocked. "Sir, it's midnight." Elias cut him. "Now." His voice wasn't loud, just final. He hung up before answer came. He walked back to the girl, sat beside her again, letting her head rest against his arm. They waited silently. The storm outside screamed against windows like nature itself was angry at the injustice. After some minutes, Elias's phone vibrated. He opened an email with documents, scans of fines, notices, rule violations, signatures. His eyes moved fast. Reason: heater brand not approved. Fine: $600. Reason: mailbox paint fading. Fine: $200. Reason: selling handmade gloves without HOA permission. Fine: $400. Reason: window curtain fabric not standard. Fine: $120. Dozens of fines. Every fine heavier than the last. Every reason crueler. Then one document stopped his breath. A shutdown order, heater disabled by HOA until compliance. Signed by HOA president. Date: 3 weeks ago. The same day the storm season started. Elias's hand clenched so tight the phone screen shook. The girl watched his eyes change and whispered, "They said if we pay, they will turn heater on." Elias looked at her, anger burning like deep fire under snow. "Did anyone help?" The girl shook her head. "Mom asked neighbors. They said they are sorry but they can't risk fines. HOA watches everything." Elias closed his eyes for one moment. He saw his mother, years ago, begging for medicine, neighbors closing doors, fear stronger than kindness. He pressed the screen again. More documents. A note from HOA board: recommend relocation of resident to cheaper area. Community image must be maintained. Cold conditions are not our responsibility. Elias's jaw tightened. He read a handwritten note from a board member: if she cannot afford basics, let her go. That one sentence felt like a bullet. He saw another file, a complaint by the mother months ago: request help with heating cost. Severe winter. Child affected. The answer: denied. Not HOA responsibility. Elias's chest felt heavy like a stone. The girl leaned closer, scared of his silence. "Mom worked 2 jobs, she whispered suddenly, like she wanted Elias to know the truth. "She made gloves and cleaned houses. But she got sick last month. She could not go. Then heaters off, then snow." Elias swallowed hard. "What is your mother's name?" The girl whispered, "Lena." The name hit something old inside him. Lena. He remembered someone calling a woman that name in his memory. His eyes became distant. The girl looked at him confused. "Do you know my mom?" Elias didn't answer. He looked at the emergency doors instead. His phone buzzed again. A second document came, proof of complaint about a child walking alone for help weeks ago. The mother had sent email: if something happens, my daughter may go outside for help. HOA response: keep child indoors. Asking help from residents is violation of privacy policy. Elias's blood turned cold. They rejected a mother's warning. The girl looked up. Mom said, if anything happens, I should go to the man with mountain house. She said she saved him once, so he will save us. Elias's breath stopped for a second. Saved him once? He repeated. The girl nodded. Long time. Before I was born. She said she helped a little boy in snow. She never forgot him. Elias's heart pounded like the storm. A buried memory flashed. Snow, darkness, a woman's voice, a warm coat around him, a hand on his forehead. He remembered calling someone Lena as a child when he woke. His eyes widened slowly. He looked at the girl differently now, not as a stranger, but as the daughter of the woman who saved his life. His whole world shifted in one moment. The emergency door opened. A nurse entered. She is warming now. Still unconscious, but stable. Her body temperature is rising. The girl stood fast. Can we see? The nurse shook her head gently. Soon. The girl's shoulders fell, but her hope returned slowly. Elias asked, voice tight, who will pay for her treatment? The nurse checked the file on her tablet. Hospital policy covers emergency, but extended care needs payment. Elias took out his card. Put everything on my personal account. The nurse hesitated. There is an HOA block. Elias stepped closer, eyes sharp. Override it. The nurse saw something in his eyes, power mixed with history. She nodded and walked away. The girl looked at him like he was unreal. Can we live now? She whispered. Elias kneeled down. You will live. Your mom will live. And no one will ever touch your heater again. The girl blinked slowly, tears falling. She hugged him suddenly, arms around his neck, face pressed against his coat. Elias froze, not because he disliked it, but because the hug felt like the hug he once gave the woman who saved him. He put his hand slowly on her back. Hours passed. The girl fell asleep in the chair beside him, holding his coat like it was a mother. Elias didn't sleep. He watched her breathing, small chest rising and falling, hair messy, ice melted into damp curls. He thought about children growing in cold, about mothers dying in rules, about fines used like weapons. His phone buzzed again. Message from legal head, this is criminal negligence. We can destroy HOA by morning. Elias stared at screen, darkness filling his eyes. Not evil darkness, justice darkness. Pain turning into steel that he typed one line, prepare everything. He looked at the emergency doors one last time. Lena was behind those doors. The woman who once saved a little boy with nothing. Now that boy was a man with everything, and tonight, destiny came full circle through a blizzard. Elias leaned his head back against the wall, eyes burning with tired fire. He whispered to himself, so low no one heard, tomorrow, the mountain answers. And snow kept falling outside, heavy, thick, endless. But inside the warm hospital room, a frozen future slowly started to melt. Morning didn't arrive gently. It came like iron cutting through darkness. The storm outside slowed, but inside Elias's mind the real storm had just begun. He didn't sleep, not even for a minute. His eyes stayed open, locked on the emergency doors all night, like he was guarding them with his own heartbeat. The girl slept curled in the chair, his coat wrapped around her like a cocoon. Nurses walked quietly, sometimes stopping to look at him, whispering something about powerful people who actually care. But Elias didn't hear, didn't react. His world was smaller now, one mother fighting for life, one child sleeping beside him, and one truth burning deeper with every passing second. At 7 a.m. sharp, his phone buzzed. All documents ready, his legal head wrote. Elias stood up slowly, careful not to wake the girl. He placed his coat more firmly over her shoulders, like tucking a blanket on someone he loved. His movements were soft, but his eyes were hard. He stepped outside the waiting area, made a call to his driver, voice sharp, bring the car to the hospital entrance. We go straight to HOA office. Then he called another number. Prepare a meeting room for me. Board must be present. No excuses. The person on the other side sounded afraid. Only powerful people get that tone without raising voice. Before leaving, Elias walked to the nurse desk. The girl stays here, he said. If she wakes, tell her I'm coming back. She should not panic. The nurse nodded. There was respect in her eyes, Not for his money, but for the way he spoke about a child like she mattered. Elias walked to the emergency doors, put his hand gently on the glass window. Lena lay inside, machines helping her breathe, warm blankets around her body, her face pale but peaceful. For 1 second, Elias saw his own reflection beside her, the boy she saved and the man he became. He whispered very softly, almost like a promise, "I'll do what you did for me." Then he turned and walked away. The HOA building sat in the center of the community, tall like a trophy. Big glass windows, stone walls, flags outside. It looked like justice from the outside, but now Elias knew it was a cage covered in gold. His car stopped at the main entrance. Guards recognized him instantly. Doors opened like fear had fingers. Inside the boardroom, 7 members sat around a long table, expensive watches on their wrists, hot coffee cups, faces relaxed like they had no idea what storm was about to explode through the door. They were laughing about holiday plans, complaining about snow, discussing which neighbor violated Christmas lights rule. But when Elias entered, silence fell like gravity suddenly doubled. His presence was not loud, it was heavy. He walked to the table without greeting anyone, placed a thick folder in the center. The board members looked nervous, eyes moving from the folder to his face. The president, a tall man with gray hair, tried to smile politely. "Elias, this is a surprise. We didn't receive any notice." Elias cut him with one sentence, calm but sharp, "A child almost died last night." Everyone froze. Coffee cups stopped midair. The president blinked. "I'm sorry to hear that, but what does this have to do with?" Elias opened the folder, revealing dozens of printed fines, photos, heater shutdown orders, denied requests, and emails stamped with official HOA signatures. He didn't give speeches. He didn't raise voice. He simply pushed the documents across the table, like giving them a mirror to see their cruelty. "This," he said quietly, "is what you did." The board members leaned forward, trying to read, hearts beating faster. The treasurer, a woman with gold earrings, frowned. "These are normal fines. House must follow standards." Elias grabbed one paper, held it up, "Heater shut down in winter because it wasn't a luxury model." His voice rose just a little. "You turned off heat in a house with a child." The treasurer hesitated, defensive tone shaking. "Rules are rules." Elias slammed the paper down so hard it echoed through the room. His voice didn't shout. It exploded quietly. "Rules are not weapons." Everyone sat back like lightning struck the table. He took another paper. "You fined her for selling handmade gloves to buy food." He took another. "You fined her for mailbox paint." Another. "You fined her for curtain fabric." Another. "You denied her request for help during danger." The president tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "She never came to us personally. She wrote aggressive emails." Elias slid one email forward. "I have heart condition and cannot pay all fines. Cold is dangerous for my child. Please help." He slid the reply under it. "Denied. Not HOA responsibility." Every board member looked down. Elias's eyes moved slowly around the table. "She begged," he said. "You ignored her." Someone whispered, "Maybe she should move to cheaper area." Elias's laugh was not humor, it was pain turned into steel. "You think being poor is a crime?" He stepped closer. "You sit here in warm building, drink hot coffee, while a mother froze 3 streets away." Silence. Heavy like stone. He pressed a button on his tablet. A recording played through speakers. The board heard their own voices. "If she can't afford heat, let her freeze. People like her don't belong here. Maybe cold will teach her a lesson." The words echoed like poison in the air. Everyone looked horrified, some because of guilt, some because they got caught. Elias turned the volume off. His voice was low and cold. "A little girl almost died last night because of your rules." The room felt like someone removed oxygen. The president tried to breathe. "We didn't know it was life-threatening." Elias leaned closer. "Then why did she walk alone in snow to find me?" The board exchanged confused looks. "Why you?" the treasurer asked. Elias opened his wallet. Inside was a folded photograph, old, faded, edges yellow. He put it on the table. It was a picture of a young boy wrapped in a coat, eyes tired from cold, sitting on a hospital bench beside a woman holding his hand. The girl's mother. Years ago. Everyone stared at the photo, eyes wide, then stared at Elias. He spoke slowly, each word heavy with memory. You almost killed the woman who saved my life. No one spoke. Not even breath moved. He pointed at the picture. When I was a child, she found me in snow. She carried me to safety. She gave me heat, food, and life. Without her, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be anything. His voice broke slightly, but he controlled it, turning pain into strength. And what did you give her for the same kindness? His eyes filled with anger and sadness. You gave her fines, threats, cold. The president opened his mouth, but no words came, only a broken inhale. Elias stepped back. You closed her heater to protect your community image. He pointed toward the window overlooking expensive houses. That image almost killed a mother. That image put a child on the road at midnight. Silence. Tears filled the treasurer's eyes, not because she cared, but because she understood what would happen next. Elias gathered the stack of documents. His voice turned final. I'm calling an emergency assembly. The board will face removal today. The president stood fast. You don't have authority. Elias looked at him, eyes like ice. I do. I funded this community. I built this board. I know every signature, every policy. And I know when something is broken. The president looked around like asking for support, but every face was pale. Elias picked up his phone. I'm inviting every resident to hear the truth. The treasurer whispered in panic, this will destroy us. Elias nodded slowly. Yes, that's the point. He walked toward the exit, leaving 7 powerful people sitting in silence, like children caught hurting someone fragile. As he reached the door, he paused. He looked back one last time. His voice was not angry now, it was sad. You forgot the reason HOA exists. Not to punish, to protect. The door closed with a quiet click, but it sounded like thunder. Outside the boardroom, people were gathering already. Neighbors with shocked faces reading the emergency notice on their phones. Elias didn't walk past them like a CEO. He walked through them like one of them. A woman grabbed his arm, shaking. Is it true? Someone froze. Elias nodded. A man whispered, ashamed, we didn't know. Elias looked at him, voice soft, you were afraid. They used your fear to build power. People lowered their eyes. Elias raised his phone, played the recording again. The crowd heard the harsh laughter of the board. A collective gasp moved through the hall. Someone started crying. Someone covered their mouth. A father hugged his child close like suddenly he understood how fragile safety is. Elias looked at all of them. His tone was gentle but strong, no more silence. The crowd nodded slowly, anger turning into courage, tears turning into voices. Back at the hospital, the girl woke up alone in her chair. She looked around quickly, fear rising. A nurse walked to her and smiled. He will come back, she said. He promised. The girl held Elias's coat close to her chest like a warm shield. She whispered to herself, he always returns, not as hope, but as belief. Inside the hospital room, Lena's hands moved slightly under the covers. Machines beeped slower and stronger. Her heartbeat found rhythm again outside. Elias walked through a hallway full of people ready to listen, but a child's whisper pulled him here. A mother's courage saved him long ago. Now he would save her world. And the storm that began outside in snow now moved into every heart in the community. Not a cold storm, a storm of truth. The crowd inside the HOA building grew like a wave, slow at first, then strong, people coming from every corner, shaking the snow from their jackets, faces pale from shock, eyes wide with questions. Some came because they saw the emergency notice. Some came because rumors travel faster than winter wind. Some came because they heard a child almost froze. Some came because they always felt something was wrong. but fear kept their mouths closed until someone with power opened them. Elias stood at the center of the hall, not on the stage, not above anyone, among them. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence around him made every word heavy. They shut off heat for a sick mother, he said softly. They blocked emergency calls. They forced a child to walk alone in a storm. His eyes moved slowly across dozens of faces. And they warned all of you to be silent, or you will be next. People looked at each other, eyes meeting for the first time without walls between them. One old woman covered her mouth, shaking. A father held his son closer. A young woman wiped tears with her sleeve. Fear was still there, but something else was rising, anger mixed with courage. Elias opened a folder and held up documents like scars. This is not one mistake, he continued. This is pattern. 10 months. 32 fines. 0 help. Then he put the folder down gently, like placing a child on bed. Tell me, how many of you suffered? His voice did not accuse, it invited truth. For one moment no one moved. Then a hand rose in the crowd, small, trembling. A teacher in glasses stepped forward slowly. Her voice cracked like something heavy broke inside. First they fined me for after-school tutoring, she said. They said children walking on road make noise. I stopped helping, because I was scared. People gasped softly. The teacher continued, staring down at her hands. Those children needed help for exams. Some were from poor families. But HOA told me if I teach without permission again, they will evict me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I chose fear instead of kindness. Elias looked at her, eyes gentle. Fear is not choice, he said quietly. Fear is force. Another voice spoke from the back. A man with a walking stick, thin gloves, tired face. They fined me for wheelchair ramp, he said. They said wooden ramp looks ugly. I cannot climb stairs without it. His voice broke. They said buy metal ramp, $10,000. I don't have that money. He laughed sadly. I built wooden ramp myself, and they gave me penalty. People around him looked shocked, ashamed they didn't know. Elias walked toward him slowly. He didn't speak like CEO, he spoke like human. Your ramp is not ugly, he said. Your ramp is strength. The man's eyes filled with tears. Then another hand rose, a mother with 2 small children holding her legs tightly. She spoke fast, afraid her courage would die if she slowed. They fined us for laundry hanging outside. My dryer broke. I cannot buy new one. I hung clothes in sun. They said it destroys community image. She shook her head slowly, voice breaking. So I dried clothes at night in cold. My children got sick. People murmured, pain spreading like fire through dry wood. Then a teenager shouted from behind. They fined us because my grandmother grows vegetables in front yard. His voice was angry. They said only flowers allowed. Flowers don't feed us. Vegetables do. He pointed outside. She cried whole night. Emotion cracked the hall like ice breaking. Every story felt like someone opening a wound that was closed too long. Elias listened without interrupting. He wasn't gathering data. He was gathering truth. He raised his hand gently, silencing the noise. Every one of you suffered alone, he said. Because they taught you silence equals safety. But silence is how cruelty grows. The hall didn't applaud. They breathed, deeply, like they forgot how to breathe for years. Elias turned to his assistant. Show the files. The assistant connected laptop to big screen. Documents flashed across wall. Fines, threats, photos, emails. People read them like reading their own pain written in someone else's words. Then audio played again, the board mocking Lena. The hall stiffened. Someone whispered, monsters. A man shouted, shame. A woman cried openly. A child hugged his father tighter. Elias watched their faces, not to enjoy anger, but to understand pain. Then he spoke again, voice calm like snow falling. HOA should protect community. Instead, it punished community. It used rules to create fear. It used silence to kill warmth. And worst of all, his voice dropped. It forgot humanity. He turned toward the boardroom door, still closed behind glass. "We will not wait for their apology," he said. "We will change everything." A bold silence followed. A young man stepped forward. "How?" he asked, not angry, hungry for change. Elias nodded slightly. "By truth first. By unity second. By vote third." He walked to the center again. "I am calling an emergency assembly today. Every resident will vote. Board members will step down. New leaders will rise from community, not from fear." People started whispering, some nervous, some excited, some shaking with new confidence. An old woman raised her hand. "You will lead?" she asked. Elias paused. The question hung in air like a feather. He looked at the crowd, not as followers, but as future leaders. His voice was soft. "I will fight. But leadership is not crown. It is service. If I lead, it will not be alone. It will be with you." Those words hit harder than any speech. Before anyone could react, Elias's phone vibrated. A message from the nurse. "Lena is waking slowly. Child asking for you." His heart jumped, not like panic, but like life returning. Elias turned back to the hall. "I must go," he said. "Someone important needs me." A man asked loudly, "The woman?" Elias nodded. The crowd stepped aside like he was carrying something holy. As he walked out, people looked at him differently, not as rich man, but as man who remembered kindness. Outside, snow fell soft now, not angry. Elias walked fast through the white morning, breath visible, heart racing. He opened the hospital entrance, rushed into corridor, approached the emergency room with steps that were half fear, half hope. The girl sat there, wide awake, eyes shining with something he had not seen before, the start of joy. When she saw him, she jumped from chair and ran to him. "She moved," she whispered, voice bursting. Mom opened eyes. Elias dropped to his knees, arms around the girl. Her small body shook, not from cold this time, from relief. They stood, walked to the door. A nurse smiled softly. "She is weak, but awake." Elias breathed like he carried the storm out of his lungs. He walked in slowly. Lena lay with blankets around her, face pale but eyes open. Eyes that once looked at him in childhood. Her gaze found his face slowly, like searching through years. When she recognized him, tears filled her eyes instantly. Her lips moved, voice weak but alive. "You grew up." The world inside Elias collapsed and rebuilt in 1 second. He walked to her, sat on chair, took her cold hand carefully. "Yes," he whispered. "Because of you." Lena closed her eyes for a moment. A tear rolled down her cheek. "I remembered your face in snow," she said. "Your mother," she cried in my arms. "You were so cold." Elias swallowed hard. "You gave me your coat," he said. "You saved me." Lena blinked slowly, smiling through tears. "I did what any mother would." Elias looked at her gently. "But they didn't treat you like a mother. They treated you like rule." Lena's eyes dimmed. "I tried to fight. Then I got sick. I thought no one would come." The girl leaned close, hugging her mother. "I went to him." Lena smiled weakly, hand touching her daughter's hair. "I told her one thing when I felt heart slowing, that there is one man on this mountain who understands cold." Elias's eyes filled again. "I do." They sat together, mother, daughter, man. No noise, just breath and truth. Then the girl said something innocent that made both adults break. "Mom told me, kindness comes back like snow on mountains. It melts, but it returns stronger." Elias closed his eyes, hand covering his mouth. He remembered something his mother once told him long ago, before she died. "Never forget the woman who saved your warmth." And now she was in front of him. Lena whispered, weak but proud, "I saw your face on news years later. CEO, leader, and I knew, even mountains remember compassion." Elias smiled through tears. "Then today, the mountain remembered you." Outside the window, Snow fell lighter, gentler, softer, like world changed shape. Behind them, the hospital door opened. A nurse said quietly, "There are people outside asking about her. They want to help." Elias nodded. "Tell them, community begins today." He looked at Lena and the girl, their hands connected, 3 lives tied by one storm. Today, truth woke the community. Tomorrow, unity will rebuild it. And for the first time in many winters, the mountain didn't feel cold. It felt alive. Lena's eyes stayed open, slow but full of life, like someone waking from a long winter. Elias sat beside her, his fingers wrapped around her fragile hand, warming it gently. The girl leaned on her mother's shoulder, her small face half hidden in the blanket, breathing fast like she was afraid that if she blinked too long, her mother might disappear again. Nurses walked in and out, checking monitors, changing 4 fluids, but they did so with soft smiles, because this was not just a patient recovering. This was a story that changed something heavy in every heart that witnessed it. Elias never looked away from Lena. Every movement she made reminded him of that snowy night from his childhood. Her coat wrapped around him, her voice telling him to stay awake, her hands rubbing warmth into his freezing fingers. He remembered her tired eyes, the way she shivered but still held him close. Now she lay weak on the hospital bed, and he was the one trying to give warmth back. Lena whispered, her voice thin like winter air, "You stayed." Elias nodded. "I owe you my life," he said. "I don't leave debt unpaid." Lena tried to smile, a tired, broken smile that held pride and sadness together. "Saving you was never a debt," she said. "It was just right." The girl looked at Elias with wide eyes that held 100 questions. "You knew my mom long ago?" she asked, as if trying to connect dots painted across 2 different lives. Elias nodded slowly. "She saved me when I was a little boy," he said. "I was cold like you last night." The girl gasped softly, looking at her mother with renewed wonder. "Mom is a hero," she whispered. Lena touched her daughter's face softly, her fingers trembling. "You are my reason," she said. "That is bigger than hero." Outside the hospital room, voices rose, dozens of people lining the corridor, whispering about the woman in the cold house, the little girl who walked through blizzard, the CEO who found them. Nurses tried to control the crowd, but it kept growing. People didn't come for drama, they came for truth. Nothing spreads faster than a story of injustice mixed with courage. A hospital administrator approached Elias carefully. "People want to talk to you," he said. "Some from news channels. Some residents. They want statement." Elias looked at the door but didn't stand. "Not now," he said. "Truth starts here. Not on camera." The administrator nodded and left, understanding something important. Some stories can't be sold, only honored. Elias's assistant arrived, carrying a thick binder full of papers. His eyes were tired, his hands shaking slightly, not from cold but from anger he carried since midnight. "Sir," he said quietly, "we found more." Elias took the binder, flipping pages. Hundreds of fines, hidden complaints, ignored appeals, sealed documents that should have been public. He saw one paper that made his jaw lock. Lena's appeal to reopen her rescue center 3 years ago. Denied. Reason, low visual quality building. Elias' eyes turned cold. They destroyed her work because of paint. The rescue center where she saved lives, including his, died because it did not look like the community's perfect picture. He pressed the binder shut slowly. The girl looked at the thick folder like it was a monster. "Is that all they did to people?" she asked. Elias nodded, voice heavy. "More than we knew." The girl hugged her mother tighter, whispering without sound, tears rolling silently. Lena looked at Elias, her eyes full of a pain that was too big for tears. "I tried to fight, but rules are like ice. They look clear but they break you if you push." Elias leaned closer, speaking softly, "Then we melt the ice." Lena blinked. She wasn't used to people fighting for her. She spent years fighting alone, then years learning to live with pain. Now someone stood with her, not a stranger, but a child she once saved. It felt like life returned her kindness through time, like a circle closing. The door slowly opened. A nurse stepped inside, holding a small tablet. "There's a message," she said. "Someone wants to speak to Lena." Elias frowned. The nurse showed the screen. It was a video call. Residents gathered in HOA hall, holding handmade signs. "We are sorry, Lena. We didn't know. We want change." Tears filled Lena's eyes instantly, falling without control. People who once looked away from her on the road were now standing for her. A woman from the crowd spoke through the speaker, voice breaking, "We failed you." A man said, "We feared them more than we loved each other." Another woman held hand over heart, "Forgive us. We want to help." Lena couldn't speak. Her voice died in emotions too heavy to hold. Elias took the tablet gently, answering for her. "You don't ask forgiveness from someone you abandoned. You earn it by standing up for others now." The crowd nodded, tears everywhere. Outside Lena's room, hallways filled with residents bringing food, blankets, flowers, not expensive things, meaningful things. An old man arrived with knitted scarf for Lena. A teenager brought vegetables his grandmother grew. A teacher brought storybooks for the girl. A neighbor brought soup her mother cooked. They didn't come to impress. They came to heal a wound they helped create by silence. Elias stood outside the room, watching people bring warmth to someone who froze alone. His eyes softened. This is what community should look like, he thought. Not fear. Not rules. Not fines. His assistant whispered, "Sir, what now?" Elias looked at his binder, then at the crowd, then at Lena and the girl through the window. "Now," he said slowly, "the truth leaves the hospital." They walked out into the hall. Cameras flashed. Reporters raised microphones. Elias didn't speak like politician. He spoke like someone who lost warm childhood then found it again through kindness. "This woman saved my life when I was a child," he said. "She built a rescue center to save others. HOA destroyed her life because rules were more important than people. Last night her daughter walked alone through storm asking for help because no neighbor was allowed to help. That is not community. That is cruelty wearing luxury." Reporters fell silent, not ready for truth without makeup. Elias continued, voice calm but deep. "You can't call yourself successful if your neighbor freezes in your shadow." One reporter asked, "Will you sue HOA?" Elias shook his head. "This is bigger than lawsuit. This is about what kind of people we choose to be. Do we choose comfort over compassion? Rules over humanity? Silence over truth?" His words cut deeper than any legal attack. He turned to the crowd. "I'm calling for full community meeting today. Truth will be told. Stories will be heard. Decisions will be made by all, not by 7 voices." The crowd cheered, not loud and wild, quiet and emotional, like applause in courtroom when justice arrives. Elias returned to the hospital room. Lena lay with eyes closed, but tears still rolled down her cheeks. She whispered, weak but clear, "I didn't want revenge. I only wanted heat for her." Elias sat beside her again. "You will get heat," he said. "And more. You will get your voice back." The girl sat on the bed, leaning against her mother's chest, her small hand wrapped around Lena's fingers like she was protecting her now. Lena looked at her daughter, smiling through exhaustion. "You saved me," she whispered. The girl shook her head. "He saved us." She looked at Elias with eyes full of something pure, trust. "Because you saved him first," she said. Elias felt something break open in his heart, something he held locked for years. He tapped the binder with files gently. "This," he said, "is the cold." Then he touched Lena's hand. "This," he said, "is the fire." Lena laughed weakly through tears, a laugh that sounded like snow melting. Time passed slowly. Evening light turned the room golden. Snow outside stopped, leaving silence around the city. Exhausted nurses left for shift change. Lena slept. The girl slept beside her. Elias sat by the window, watching street lights flicker like stars trapped on earth. That he remembered that night long ago. Snow covering him, cold burning his skin, his mother's face fading, Lena's coat wrapping him like hug. That warmth saved him. That warmth built a man. That warmth created a CEO who could now fight storms with power she never had. He pulled out the old photo from his wallet again. Faded faces, tired smiles, one hospital bench connecting two lives. He placed it on the table near Lena's bed. What you give to world returns when you need it most. He whispered softly, like speaking to his younger self. You didn't freeze because she chose to be fire in the cold. The next day, Lena's rescue story would be told to entire community. Tomorrow, truth would stand on stage. Tomorrow, people who feared HOA for years would raise their voice. Tomorrow, votes would remove power from cruelty. But tonight, silence held the room gently. The storm outside was over. Inside, two hearts warmed each other again. And somewhere deep in the mountain, the past and present hugged each other through the child who walked alone in snow because her mother taught her one thing nobody could take. Kindness is stronger than fear. Fade to black. Morning arrived like a deep breath after drowning. The storm was gone, the sky was clear, and fresh snow covered everything like a clean white sheet over yesterday's pain. But inside the hospital, the air felt heavy with something else. A kind of tension that rises right before truth is spoken in public. Nurses walked faster, residents moved like they were preparing for something big, and news vans lined the road outside like hungry animals waiting for a voice they could sell. Elias sat beside Lena again, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in many months. Her breathing was slow but strong now. The girl slept curled at her mother's side, hand resting on Lena's chest like she was guarding her heartbeat. The blanket around them looked small in a big bed, but the warmth they shared looked bigger than any luxury room money could buy. Elias leaned back, eyes tired but purpose sharp. His assistant entered quietly carrying a box full of documents. Fines, signatures, ignored appeals, photos of the broken heater, medical reports, emails from HOA mocking Lena. The assistant whispered, "Everything is ready. Court accepted emergency hearing." Elias nodded. His voice came low, calm, but heavy like a deep drum. "Today, they will answer." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, the board hired lawyers. They will fight." Elias closed the file slowly. "Let them fight. They break when truth stands alone." He stood up carefully to not wake Lena or the girl. He took one last look at them. Mother and daughter sleeping like warmth found them finally. Something in his chest tightened, not pain, but a reminder, don't fail them. He walked outside. The hall was full, residents standing quietly, some holding signs with handwritten words, "Heat is not luxury. Rules need heart. We stand with Lena." This wasn't protest noise. It was truth standing in blue winter jackets, worn shoes, tired faces. When Elias walked out, people made a path for him. They didn't cheer loudly. They nodded, placing hands on hearts, eyes soft. A woman whispered, "For years we waited for someone." Elias shook his head gently, "You didn't wait. You survived." She covered her mouth and cried silently. A car waited outside, not his luxury SUV, a simple community vehicle. He didn't want to arrive in court with wealth. He wanted to arrive with truth only. Snow crunched under his boots. His assistant sat beside him and the binder lay on his lap like a heavy story that demanded justice. The courthouse sat at the bottom of the mountain. Tall stone pillars, wide doors, flags moving weakly in winter wind. Reporters swarmed, microphones pointing, questions exploding. Is HOA guilty? Are you destroying your own system? Do you know the victim personally? Elias didn't answer anything. His silence wasn't avoidance, it was respect. Truth shouldn't be spilled on microphones. It should be spoken where justice lives. Inside the courtroom, the board members sat on one side. Expensive suits, stiff shoulders, makeup hiding fear, silver watches shining like shields. Their lawyers sat beside them, talking fast, papers everywhere. They looked confident, like money still controlled the world. But their eyes betrayed something, small cracks, panic underneath. Elias entered slowly, binder in hand. He didn't glare. He looked at them like someone looking at people who forgot their humanity, not enemies. The courtroom filled with residents, whispering softly, mothers holding hands, fathers carrying babies, old people sitting straight with dignity. The judge entered, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many lies and too few truths. She sat. Hammer touched the wood lightly. Begin. The HOA lawyer stood first, smiling like mask. Your Honor, this is misunderstanding. The resident violated multiple community rules. Board followed regulation. We regret the accident but... Elias stood before lawyer finished. His presence pulled every eye. Accident. His voice was soft, but the word cut like blade. You shut down heat. You blocked emergency calls. You fined poverty. You punished survival. The judge lifted hand, allowing him to speak. Elias opened binder. He didn't start with anger. He started with love. He held up Lena's appeal letter, lines written by tired hands. I have heart condition. Cold is dangerous for my child. Please help me keep heater on. Then he held up the HOA reply. Denied. Not HOA responsibility. Silence filled room. Elias placed both papers gently on table, like placing life next to death. He continued, voice steady, each word clear. For the board, image is more important than breath. Paint more important than pulse. Rules more important than life. He held up shutdown order. Heater disabled due to non-approved brand. He turned to judge. A mother died slowly because her heater was not luxury. The judge's face tightened, not emotional, but controlled rage. Then Elias pressed a button. Audio played from his tablet. If she can't afford heat, let her freeze. People like her don't belong here. Maybe winter will teach her to follow rules. The courtroom gasped, a wave of shock spreading like pulse. One of the board members covered her face, crying, not pure guilt, fear of exposure. The president tried to speak, voice broken. Those recordings are out of context. Elias looked at him, ice in his eyes. Context? A child walked alone in storm while you laughed over coffee. The judge leaned forward. Enough. Her voice had power of mountain. These recordings show intent. These documents show negligence. This is beyond rules. This is cruelty. The HOA lawyer tried one last time. Your Honor, we need time for full investigation. The judge raised her hand. I have seen enough. She looked at the board. 7 people who once ruled through fear. You used policy to control, not to protect. You punished weakness instead of helping. You turned community into prison without walls. Her hammer hit the table once, like thunder. This board is dissolved effective immediately. The room exploded, not in noise, in emotion. People cried, hugged each other, hands covered faces, shoulders shook. Some bowed their heads like thanking something above. Some held strangers. Years of fear fell in one moment. The judge continued. All fines against the victim are cancelled. Emergency help will be provided. Heating is a human right, not a luxury for image. She turned to residents. You will vote for new leadership. Real leadership. Her eyes found Elias. Mr. Warren, she said, voice softer. This is uncommon. Someone with power choosing to protect those without it. Elias bowed slightly. She protected me first. The judge blinked, understanding something deeper. Case ended. Board members sat like broken statues. Power gone, image gone, shame visible on skin like cold burn. Their expensive clothes looked small now. Elias gathered binder slowly, not celebrating, grieving the fact that suffering lasted so long. Outside courthouse, something beautiful waited. Residents lined both sides of path. Neighbors who never spoke now stood shoulder to shoulder. They didn't shout his name. They didn't chant victory. They stepped forward one by one, touching his arm, placing hand on heart, whispering simple words. Thank you. For her. For us. For seeing us. A man with wheelchair ramp spoke, voice shaking, I can live without fear now. The teacher cried into scarf, children can learn again. A mother with laundry smiled through tears, sunlight is not illegal anymore. Elias nodded to each one. He returned to the hospital, walking fast, heart pounding not from anger now, from hope. He entered the room quietly. Lena was awake, sitting slightly, the girl reading small book beside her. When they saw him, both faces lit like sunrise. Lena's eyes asked without words, "Did truth speak?" Elias nodded. He sat on bed beside them. "It's over," he whispered. Lena breathed deep, tears flooding quietly, not pain tears, relief tears. The girl hugged him tightly. "Home is warm now?" she asked. Elias touched her hair gently. "Home will always be warm now." Lena wiped tears. "You fought for me," she said. Elias shook his head. "I fought for child who walked in storm. Same child I once was." Lena looked at him like seeing two versions of him, boy and man, standing in same room. From cold, she whispered, "You became fire." Elias didn't answer with words. He squeezed her hand gently, letting his silence speak. "Your kindness built me." Evening light spilled into room outside. The mountain stood tall, covered in snow, but it didn't look cold anymore. It looked calm, like winter bowed to justice. And in a warm hospital room, three people who were strangers to the world but family to destiny sat together. Mother, daughter, and the boy she saved, now grown strong. Tomorrow, community would choose new leaders. Tomorrow, rescue center would return. Tomorrow, rules would have heart, but tonight, one truth shined quietly. Kindness survived the storm. Fade to black. Sunlight entered the hospital window like a soft hand touching a tired face. It fell across Lena's bed, warming her skin, turning her hair golden, making the room feel alive, not like a place of sickness but like a place where winter ended and spring opened its eyes. Machines still beeped, for bags still hung, nurses still walked with careful steps, but something was different in the air. Like everyone felt the storm outside was gone, and something bigger melted inside hearts too. The little girl woke first. She opened her eyes slowly and immediately looked at her mother's chest, like checking if the rise and fall was still there. When she saw the gentle rhythm, she smiled, small but deep. She pressed her ear to Lena's heartbeat for a moment, holding breath, then exhaled like she got her whole world back. Lena woke a few minutes later. Her eyes opened slowly, not from pain now, but from peace. She saw her daughter first, that small face leaning on her, tiny fingers locked with her own. Then Lena's eyes moved across the room and found Elias sitting near the window, head resting on his hand, eyes closed. He wasn't sleeping deeply, just resting like a warrior after long battle, his breathing slow, but his posture still straight, ready to stand when needed. For a moment Lena watched him quietly, the man who walked through blizzard for her child, the boy she once carried through snow many years ago. Life had pulled their paths apart, then pushed them back together like destiny had memory. Her voice came weak but warm, "You stayed again." Elias opened his eyes, stood immediately, moving to her bedside. "Always," he said. "Not like promise, like truth already lived." The girl hugged her mother gently. "Mom," she whispered, "everyone knows now. They are saying sorry." Lena looked confused, eyes blinking. Elias explained everything slowly. The emergency assembly, the court hearing, the board removal, the residents who stood for her, the signs, the tears, the truth spoken loud for first time. Lena listened, eyes filling with quiet emotion. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile wide. She just breathed, long, deep, full breath, like someone who finally came up from underwater after many years. Elias continued speaking, voice soft like respect. "Your story woke the whole mountain." Lena whispered, "I didn't want to wake anyone. I just wanted heat for her." She kissed her daughter's forehead. Elias nodded slowly. "Kindness wakes sleeping hearts," he said. Lena looked at him, eyes shining. "Kindness is loud when everything else is quiet." Outside the window, voices rose. People gathered again, not reporters this time. Families, old neighbors, children, young couples. A man with walking stick, a woman with scarf, the teacher with her books. They weren't here to watch. They were here to hold something together. The hospital corridor was full. Nurses tried to organize them but couldn't, because when hearts move, order becomes second. They brought flowers, soup, knitted blankets, letters written in shaky handwriting. We failed you. We want to learn. Thank you. Forgive us. The girl looked at the window, eyes wide. They came for you, she whispered. Lena shook head gently. They came for themselves, she said. They want to live different now. Elias stepped away from the bed for a moment, letting mother and daughter hold each other. He walked to the window, watched people waiting. Faces he passed on roads for years now looked up at him not with fear, with trust. His assistant arrived breathing hard, papers in hand. Sir, he said softly, people want you to lead the new HOA council. Elias looked surprised for a second, like he didn't expect leadership to come from pain. He turned back to Lena and the girl. Leadership wasn't crown. It was responsibility tied to two hands he promised to protect. He looked at his assistant and asked one question. Do they want leader or do they want change? The assistant smiled sadly. They want both, and they see both in you. Elias didn't answer. He walked back to Lena. They want me to lead, he said. Lena's smile was small but knowing. You always had the strength, she whispered. Elias shook his head lightly. Strength without compassion is ice. You gave me compassion. Lena closed her eyes briefly, accepting both compliment and truth. You learned warmth, she said. Now use it. The girl looked between them with innocent eyes shining. Can we have home now? Warm home. Elias kneeled down to her height. You will never be cold again, he said. Later that day, Lena was moved to special recovery room. Doctors were careful. Heart condition mixed with cold trauma needed time. The girl helped in small ways, passing water, holding towel, brushing her mother's hair gently. Elias stayed every hour, leaving only for quick calls. By evening, he made decision quietly inside himself, not out of pressure, not out of pride, out of duty shaped by memory. The community hall was full again. Elias entered with simple clothes, no tie, no coat of power, just man walking into circle of people ready to start new chapter. The judge sat too, as witness of transition. Lena wasn't here physically, but her story filled every chair. An old man stood first. We want Elias, he said. We want someone who knows cold and warmth. A woman added, we don't need perfect leader. We need human leader. People clapped, not loud, soft and emotional. Elias lifted his hand. Silence. If I lead, he said, it won't be for power. It will be to build community where heat is right, not privilege. Where fines don't break families. Where rules protect, not punish. Where children don't walk alone in night. People nodded, tears visible. He continued, leadership is not office. Leadership is what you do when no one watches. I learned that from a woman who saved my life when she had nothing. Everyone knew who he meant. Lena. Voting happened by raising hands. One by one, hands lifted. Slow, shaking, some crying, some smiling bravely. Every hand was story. Every hand was apology. Every hand was future. Elias didn't smile wide. He looked deeply moved, eyes wet. Thank you, he said. But remember, I am not community. You are. I will guide. You will grow. After vote, something beautiful happened. People walked toward him, not for praise, but for hug. The man with walking stick embraced him. The mother with 2 children cried against his shoulder. The teacher held his hand. A teenager whispered, thank you for seeing us. Elias returned to hospital after meeting. He walked through corridors filled with warm faces. He entered Lena's room softly. She was awake, holding photo in her hand. The old picture of her sitting with small boy on hospital bench years ago. The girl slept beside her, cheek against her arm. Lena looked at photo, then at Elias, then back at photo. We came here again, she whispered. Elias sat beside her. Not same way, he said. This time, you are not alone. Lena nodded, tears rolling down. No one should be alone in winter, she said softly. Elias looked at her with a memory glowing in his eyes. You taught me that, he replied. The girl woke gently and climbed into Elias's lap like she belonged there. Mom said kindness returns, she said. Elias hugged her carefully. It returned, he said. Lena touched their hands together. 3 hands, 1 story. Elias took the old photo from Lena, unfolded it slowly. Child version of him stared from picture with frightened eyes. Adult version of him stared from reflection in window with steady eyes. Lena in photo looked young, strong. Lena in bed looked older, tired. But her heart, the same. He placed photo inside a new frame he brought. Wooden, warm color, small engraving on bottom. Cold remembered warmth. Warmth returned. Lena smiled, tears falling silently. A nurse entered quietly. Sir, she said to Elias, someone sent message for Lena. She handed small letter, handwritten. We will rebuild the rescue center in her name. Lena covered her mouth, crying. The girl jumped. Mom, they build your center again. Lena sobbed quietly. I thought my work died, she whispered. Elias touched her hand. Work of love never dies, he said. He explained the plan. Community would rebuild her rescue center. With new heating, new beds, new equipment, new volunteers. Lena would be leader, not for salary, not for recognition, for purpose she lived for. She saved lives once, she will save again, with whole community beside her. Lena cried into her hands. The girl hugged her tight. Elias sat with them, letting silence hold everything outside. The sun touched snow gently. Mountains shining like glass lake, trees wearing white coats. Air cold, but heart warm. Final scene, afternoon 1 week later. The community gathered near old rescue center location. Now clean ground, construction markers, volunteers, tools. A wooden sign ready to be placed stood beside Snow Mountain Rescue Center, founded by Lena. The girl held hammer in both hands. Elias stood behind her, guiding her gently. Lena watched from warm seat, wrapped in coat, smile shining like morning. The girl lifted hammer, hit first nail slowly. People clapped, tears everywhere. Elias whispered near her ear, "You built beginning." She looked up at him with big eyes. "We built," she corrected. Elias smiled, heart full. Lena whispered, voice breaking with joy, "Kindness returns." Elias looked at mountain, voice gentle, "And we return kindness." Fade out, camera closing on 3 hands holding each other in snow. Woman's hand with scars, girl's hand with hope, man's hand with strength. 3 lives shaped by storm, connected by fire.